Hello, welcome to the weekly wrap up. Looking back this last week, today is August 15th, mid August. Miserably hot here in East Tennessee, but good day for those who can go to a pool or the lake or the river and headed towards the wonderful fall season when you get to enjoy the coolness. It's coming. I want to start today by talking about gratitude. This is a season where we're headed into just an incredible calendar of gratitude. The gratitude in Thanksgiving, the gratitude of Christmas, the incarnation, the birth of Christ, culminating with the Easter season, the pinnacle of our church calendar, and the ultimate gratitude that we deserve hell and God instead has brought us eternal life. I think that our society is missing a lot of gratitude. I've had two wonderful, encouraging moments this week of things to be grateful for. One is that a listener, a reader here in Knoxville was, unbeknownst to me, connected to an advertisement for a washer and dryer. The washer in one of the houses we use for the at-risk kids ministry that we have in Lonsdale, really across the city, but our housing is in Lonsdale. It lost a washer, and another one of the houses lost a dryer. He was selling a set, a washer and a dryer. Really thankful for that because when we went to purchase it, he found out that the ministry was connected to me, and he donated the washer and dryer. So it was a blessing. I was very thankful for it and very encouraged. Another thing that hasn't happened very often happened this morning. Thought that for the weekend we're going to be working a lot. We're going to be doing outside work, inside work, and one of my kids to know I appreciate them and have a fun start to the day. So we went to Waffle House, and while we were at Waffle House, we talked about what I'm going to share this morning, this idea of gratitude. And the man next to us paid for our meal. I've been talking to the kids about the fact that Waffle House is special for our family because we don't go very often. If you go to Waffle House every day, it is something that means a lot to you, but it is certainly not special or unexpected or rare. And for us, we go to Waffle House maybe a few times a year. And so it's a special treat for the kids, and they really enjoyed it. But to be surprised at the end that someone had already paid for our bill was something extra special. What we talked about at breakfast this morning with my kids is the fact that it's incredibly easy to move in life from gratitude, something unexpected. It's a present, it's a gift, it's something you're thankful for. And you go, wow, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Your heart is filled with gratitude. To anticipation, you're seeing some relatives around a holiday. They usually give you some famous jam, something that you like, and so you're thinking, man, I hope I get some jam. That'd be great. To expectation is step 3, and that is, like there's gonna be jam. I'm definitely getting this gift this time. To finally, entitlement. You owe me jam. That's what we do. That's what this relationship is. I show up, you give me jam. And there are so many areas in which people have moved from gratitude to anticipation to expectation to entitlement. I asked my kids in the car on the way back from Waffle House, what do we deserve? What are we entitled to? The Wood family, each of us, what do we deserve? And the answer in chorus, which I was thankful for, well catechized kids that they are, was hell. Hell. Yep, that's what we deserve. We deserve hell. And when you start there, every day is a gift. When you start there, it's easy to be filled with gratitude. when you recognize that the good things that you so often take for granted aren't something that you're entitled to. There's something that you should view as a gift, as a thing to take joy in. That the Heavenly Father who created the universe sent Jesus to die on the cross to pay for your sins and has set up an ordered creation where despite the fall, despite sin, despite suffering, there's so many good gifts that are bestowed upon his children every day. Talked to a friend this week who was suffering in part because of a season of grief that he's in that's incredibly understandable. His wife of 56 years passed away. His grandson in his early 20s passed away after living with him. He had cystic fibrosis and had an adverse reaction to some medication that was being used for an infection and passed away suddenly in the hospital. That's tragic. It's heartbreaking. But my friend is not sitting around feeling sorry for himself. He is using his 4-bedroom house, which he has allowed other young men who are starting off life and starting off understanding ministry to come and move in with him and live with him. And so as we talked about our lives, I shared that I'm seeking to focus on gratitude. And he said, Clayton, gratitude is the only thing more powerful than grief. And I know that I can keep going, and I know that I have more tomorrows that are worth facing because of my gratitude. And if I feel that things were stolen from me in the future, he didn't use the word entitlement at any point, but what he described is people who are entitled. Why is my wife gone? I needed more time with her. That trap that people can live in, I'm entitled to X, Y, and Z. It's not tied to biblical truth. None of us are promised tomorrow. And so using each day as the gift it is a great place to start. Now that's 7 minutes and you're saying, what about Iran? Yeah, I want us to think about gratitude because the attention that is given, the attention that the focus is on in the world is to problems, to things that make us angry, to things that make us motivated to speak out. And it is rarely toward gratitude. And gratitude is where we should start. So I write about brokenness. I write about things that I think are fixable. I do not enjoy writing about or spend much time on things that I view as intractable problems. If something can't be fixed, I don't want to fixate on it. But when I see problems that I think, man, if enough people give this attention, we can fix it, we can improve it, we can move towards something better, it's something I want to spend time on because I love rallying people towards solutions. This last week has seen several things that I've written have some level of virality, and that was a blessing looking at it with gratitude. It was a curse looking at it from the standpoint of someone who has no monetization. I make no money on anything I post on Facebook, and who feels extremely frustrated when I know that there are so many comments that I won't ever read them all, and yet feels some type of obligation to steward comments well. I don't want people using the Lord's name in vain. I don't want people cursing. I don't want people saying racist things. I don't want people degrading others. How did that happen in this week? It started because of a story where I saw a video taken by a perpetrator who is walking down the sidewalk and sees a woman who waves at him, and he immediately attacks her, beats her, knocks her on the ground, then is hitting her in the face while she's on the ground, looking stunned. And it's just striking imagery. She's holding like a get well soon balloon. I don't know if it was for her or if she was bringing it to someone else. Her glasses are all askew on her face. And the thing that struck me most about this particular video is that it's from Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte, North Carolina is a city where my dad lived. It's a city where one of my relatives painted some unbelievably gorgeous and amazing frescoes. William Long, some Charlotte bank buildings, some of the prettiest buildings downtown have his frescoes in them. It's a city I care about, and it's a city that is disgustingly broken right now in terms of its legal system. It's broken because of a pattern of wickedness George Soros funded evil men and women to run for different prosecutorial spots in elected office. And rather than do their duty and punish criminals and prevent criminals from harming others, they release them onto the street over and over again. The criminal in this video, the criminal who filmed himself attacking someone, is a criminal whose mom was attacked by him, whose sister was attacked by him, a criminal whose family has begged for him to be locked up so that he stops harming people. He's also a guy, as you watch it, he's not picking on someone his own size. There are not a lot of cases of him fighting men. He chooses vulnerable women and he goes after them and harms them. If someone out of the blue harms someone in our society, they are 100% culpable and no one else is culpable. When other people become culpable, it's because a person is a known danger, a known risk. You have the power to stop them and you choose not to. That's a system level problem. It's happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota in clear, disturbing ways. It's happening in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's happening in Dearborn, Michigan. Dearborn, Michigan had a case that I wrote about as well that almost sounds unbelievable. Dearborn, Michigan, there was a man from Iraq who also was caught on video, and he was one of a multitude of attackers of a provocateur. Provocateur's name's Jake Lang. He said some horrible racist things. He's not someone I would ever partner with or work with unless he repents of the evil of his racism. But Jake Lang was up in Dearborn, Michigan, a march of Muslims promoting something, and he is on a bullhorn, and right after he says, "I speak the name of Jesus," which again, usually love it when someone says, "I speak the name of Jesus," not when it's a racist provocateur, but and I'm not saying racist if you're wondering, I know Islam's not a race. It's not because of that. He says pro-Nazi things. He's a specific person, and if you do your research, you'll know why. I could never partner with this man. But the video is, he says the name of Jesus, and he's immediately set upon by demonized, wicked, awful people who attack him physically and seek to treat him as if he's in a Muslim country. Which, by the way, the level of vitriol that you get when you say the truth about Islam shows you how sick and broken American society is. Not all Muslims this way. I never said all Muslims this way. I can say that there is not a Muslim country in the world where we are allowed as Christians to proclaim the gospel in the way that they demand that they be allowed to practice their religion. There is no mutuality. And Islam is seeking, at a political side, the political Islam is seeking to subjugate the world into the Ummah, that all the world will be under Sharia law. And people who act as if they don't understand that may not, they may be ignorant, but it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. There are people in America who call themselves Muslim, who do not believe that slavery is okay, who do not believe in subjugating women, who do not believe we should all be living under Sharia law. The problem with helping understand a world that they live in is that there are no cases of the tolerant, free speech, First Amendment Muslim countries anywhere in the world. We cannot allow Islamists to ever have power in any part of the United States because Islam is fundamentally incompatible with the Constitution, with Western human rights, and with the rule of law. So, the man who is part of the mob trying to kill Jake Lang in Dearborn, Michigan, is a man who is from Iraq, who murdered someone in Michigan as an immigrant. He came here legally. He's on a green card. But guys, this is how immigration works if you're unfamiliar. If you are not a citizen and you commit a felony, particularly a dangerous felony, like, I don't know, murder, you're not supposed to be able to stay anymore in the United States. He murdered someone years ago, and our broken, pathetic system still has him waiting more hearings and more appeals and more hearings and more appeals. Now, listen, I'm an attorney. I believe in the rule of law and I believe in due process. And we do need a surge of ALJs and or other, that's administrative law judges and or other lawyers to step in and clear the backlog of cases. And part of the reason we have such a backlog of cases is because people who hate the rule of law in America intentionally flooded our legal system with so many cases that they knew that by the time someone actually showed up for their hearing, they would have already accomplished a lot of what they wanted to do by having a stay for removal and working here for 4 or 5 years before they get kicked out. Okay, so some of this is by design. It's chaos by design. But guys, the system is broken. The system is broken when a murderer is here in the United States awaiting deportation year after year after year. And if you're one of the lawyers trying to make it so that the murderer can stay, shame on you. The system is not designed to protect guilty people as long as they can pay for a sympathetic person who's pro-murderer. That's not the way any of this is supposed to work. And when I say murder, I don't mean alleged murderer. I mean he was tried and convicted of murder in the United States because he killed someone on purpose. And here he is, a Muslim in Dearborn, Michigan. And the police aren't even trying to help ICE pick him up to get him out of here. The system's not working, guys. It's not working. I'm happy to debate or argue with you about what should be done and how it can be done. But that murderer being free is a picture that sounds unbelievable until you look into it and realize he is not the only case like that in America. And in fact, based on the best data I can find, nerding out on this, there are thousands of felons today in America who have committed felonies. We know they did, and they're awaiting deportation. They're in the system, but they're not incarcerated. They're walking free after committing felonies, and they are here where we know who they are and we know where they are, and we haven't gotten them out. There's a lot to debate about immigration. My position on that, some people think is liberal because I want a path to legalization for some people, but I think we should all be able to agree that felons who are dangerous, who aren't citizens, don't get to stay here. It seems pretty simple. Another thing we should all be able to agree on that I wrote about this week is that killing a viable, healthy baby in the 3rd trimester is a moral outrage that no one should accept in the United States of America. Well, Clayton, what about to save the life of the mother? That's not what I'm talking about. Well, Clayton, what about a baby who can't live a normal life outside the womb? Well, actually, that is something I have written about and talked about extensively. I was up in New York at the partial birth abortion ban trial where Judge Richard Casey, who was born blind, was talking to abortion doctors who were very proud of the kind of people that they were able to eliminate with the partial birth abortion procedure. And amongst the people that they wanted to eliminate with that procedure were people like my brother Paul, who was there in the courtroom with me, who was born with hydrocephalus and now lives with a shunt that drains the excess cerebral spinal fluid from him, and people like Judge Casey, who were born with a genetic abnormality that means that they're going to be blind. Those people are vile. What they're doing is wicked. And the state of Massachusetts decided that they needed to make it more clear, and they needed to gather in the governor's office and celebrate the signing of a bill that allows for killing babies through all 9 months of pregnancy for any reason. That's horrible. That is sickening. It is a modern day Molech, and the demons who are behind that, who demand child sacrifice, are very upset with places like Tennessee, where I live, where that is not allowed to happen, where it is illegal. And guys, we were promised by liars working for the pro-abortion side that if we had bans of that kind of abortion, if we had bans of abortion that is done surgically, that women were going to die. It hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. Women are not dying. It was a lie when they said it. At the time, a couple of years ago, I said it was a lie. And today, the data is in. It was a lie. Women do not need surgical abortions. They don't. They are, in fact, terrible for them, and I wouldn't just say spiritually and emotionally. They're also often physically dangerous and have costs that are significant. So, I wouldn't live in a state that allowed that, personally. I have a friend, a dear friend, classmate from school, who was also a roommate at times, who is up in Massachusetts right now. He is not a Republican by any means. He read my article and said that he agreed with it because he doesn't think it's okay. It is an area of agreements that should be for Republicans, for Democrats. Democratic Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan said that partial birth abortion is tantamount to infanticide. And what they are doing in Massachusetts is allowing for a person who is 8.5 months along, a person who is 9 months along, to murder a healthy baby as an elective process. It is hard to even comprehend how wicked and evil those people are. And I urge you to take the time to watch the video of them cheering and applauding this bill, because it sets the stage for how demonic this battle is and how much people are not to be trusted if they believe that they can dehumanize human life and murder babies and be just another choice that they make in society. The lines are very clear. God will not be mocked. It is wicked, it is evil, it is shocking, it is horrifying. There was also this week a famed academic who died. He killed himself, it looks like. He died yesterday. His name is Jason Arday, and he was the youngest Black professor in the history of Cambridge. Very tragic how everything unraveled. Like Claudine Gay, he is partly a villain and partly a victim. I say that because he is certainly a villain in that he is a plagiarist and a liar and a serial liar, and much more of an entertainer than an actual serious academic. But here's how he's a victim. He's a part of a DEI culture that platformed people in a racist way, based on the color of your skin, not the content of your character. People were fast-tracked into celebrity. People were fast-tracked into positions of power. And it wasn't because they were brilliant and academically rigorous. It's because they checked a box. And that's not good for them. And it wasn't good for the institutions that they represented. And Cambridge wasn't sure that they were going to fire him. And really, absent media uproar, I don't think that they would have. But eventually it was found out, he was fired, and yesterday he killed himself. Very tragic, but he's also a part of a much broader thing. Again, when I talk about Charlotte and the breakdown, it's not about one person and one case. When I talk about Dearborn, Michigan, it's not about one person and one case. When you talk about Jason Arday, understand that this man is a tragic case, but the tragedy is much deeper than a person. The tragedy is societal. The tragedy is that there are multiple majors that have no academic rigor, that are basically grievance studies. And there have been different ways that it's been demonstrated, proven by people who made it their project, that there's absolutely no academic rigor within them. Submitting fake papers, getting rave reviews for them. If you want to study more, you can, but here's where it lands. Social science is supposed to mean something when it uses the second word. It's supposed to be a science. It's supposed to be tied to something meaningful, something that lasts. something that can be tested, something that can have real studies. And there are many areas in burgeoning fields where universities took for themselves tremendous amounts of money to prostitute their credentialing and to give people degrees that are worthless, that are meaningless, and that in fact just mark that person as someone who I would never work with under any circumstances unless they got radically saved and could tell me how sad that they were, that they wasted their life under the delusion of being a PhD in women's studies or any number of other fake academic disciplines that have only arisen within the last 30 years. So sad to see this woke Marxist person die in such a tragic way. Much more sad that there are unbelievable numbers of people who, as the pendulum is swinging back and people are shaking off the propaganda that made them feel that part of the Danegeld that they need to pay is to keep these people in sinecures of wokeism for the rest of their life at elite universities, saying instead we don't need 8 administrators for people to find safe spaces and cry about their Marxist intersectionality. There's a lot of people in that class now, and they're lashing out, full-time lashing out. Facebook decided to take a post that I wrote about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, take that post and share it with 98% non-followers of me. I got way more, didn't read all the comments. It's over 3,000 comments. I don't have time to read all the comments, but I got way more people than normal saying, this is too long, I didn't read it. This is too long, I didn't read it. No one's going to read an essay. No one's going to read this, bro. But interestingly, I also had individual comments that had more likes than my post. That is very unusual. And again, I'm not salty about it. It was just a very weird thing within the algorithm. How does this happen? How does someone have a comment that has 6,000 likes on a post? It's very unusual. What ended up happening, I think, post-mortem of my post, is that I wrote about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Here's the substance of my essay. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is, as most of you know, was the youngest congressional victor in some time in New York City at 26 years old. She's now almost 37 years old, and she did a very performative display of the fertility rituals of preparing herself to freeze her eggs. She took shots, showed those on the internet, pictures with her dog as she's prepping herself, her fur baby, to potentially have real babies that she may never actually have now. And I viewed the entire thing as tragic. I viewed the entire thing as a cautionary tale. I viewed the entire thing as something that makes me think not just about my daughter. Again, in the instant case, I have a 17-year-old daughter. She's wonderful. She's amazing. And if 20 years from now she has no kids, then it could be the case that she has infertility. And that will be something that we'll mourn, because that's just a part of our broken, fallen world that we're in. And it could be the case that God calls her to singleness. And in that case, I will rejoice and I'll be thankful that God can use her. He would use her in a mighty and amazing way if she is a woman who can focus entirely on serving him without all of the work and care of a husband and children. But if she is married and she just decides that she'd rather be on Instagram and rather travel the world and rather not be bothered, and she's 36, almost 37 with no kids, I will view it as a tragedy. I will view it as deeply sad. And it's not because I'm so selfish and I want grandkids, although I do want grandkids eventually. It's because our society is breaking down because people are choosing barrenness. And I don't think that the church has done a particularly good job of addressing that. It is not the case that we should be giving young people advice as a group that they need to get their career straight, that they need to own a home, that they need to be all set before they get married. It is a beautiful and powerful thing for people to grow up together and to figure things out together and to work and to learn together And it's an awesome thing for grandparents to have decades of life to invest in their grandchildren while they still have their health, while they still have vigor. It's a beautiful and powerful role in the life of a child. And again, societally, we are headed away from that. So many people are choosing to not have kids. And childless by choice is a cry for help to me. It's not something to brag about. I talked also in that article about women who have mental health issues. I talked about persistent mental health issues, depression, anxiety at highest levels ever. I talked about the fact that it is our society that discounts the role, the vital role and importance of moms, and that we should do better as a society. I had a ton of pushback and comments of people saying things that demonstrate that they're insane. Men can't talk about this. Why are you trying to control your daughter? Hands off my body. Like, what? Particularly hilarious to hear people in intersectionality telling me that I'm not allowed to talk about women, but they are allowed to talk about men and tell me as a man anyway. And many of these are the same people who can't tell you what a woman is. Is Enes Kanter allowed to play in the WNBA? Well, ask them, because they can tell me that I'm a man, so I'm not allowed to talk. How do they know how I identify? I don't even have a beard. So again, it's a broken, deluded group of very mentally ill people, and they showed up in legion to respond to my post. And then many people made arguments about policies that they want the United States to adopt that have already been adopted in other countries. If you believe that inadequate childcare, inadequate family medical leave, inadequate maternity leave, and several other programs that you can read in the comments if you have time, would solve our fecundity problem, would solve our demographic decline, then you haven't done enough research, because those have been tried. They've been tried in Scandinavia. They've been tried in several different countries, and they had little to no effect. They certainly didn't fix the problem. So women are not in America declining to have kids because they'd love to have kids. They just can't afford it. It's not true. There's an interesting article about minivans and car seats. And there may be some small effects at the margin, but generally that is not what's happening in our country. And there's not a policy prescription that'll fix it, but there is a spiritual and emotional renewal of understanding and supporting families and caring for young families and giving them a wraparound care, but mostly giving them the hope and understanding that obeying the mandate of creation, be fruitful and multiply, is one of the greatest blessings that you can experience in life. It's wonderful. It's amazing. I'm thankful for it. Surrounded by my nieces and nephews on both sides of the family, I am struck by what a blessing it is, and I want other people to know that blessing and to fully appreciate it. Now, there's been a lot of things mostly focused on the United States. I'm going to talk for a little bit about Iran. I'm going to talk about a problem that's happened on some ships. There are people in America who are miserable, who want us to lose to Iran, who want that war to finish, who root against America in every conflict we're in. There are people who blame Jews falsely for our conflicts. There are people who are Muslim and want the Muslims to rule over the entire world, including us. There's a lot of people with a lot of motivations, but our press, I don't really understand their motivations well, and I don't know to give them a pass on anything, but they are in an unprecedented time. Loose lips sink ships has moved from the kind of thing in World War II where information was sequestered, propaganda was used by the government against its own people, but with the idea that we needed to for war, to now sailors calling their mommy because they're not an adult and they need her to helicopter parent to go to the media and say that the ship is too bad. Now, in the global war on terror, I have friends who served in holes with sand fleas and scorpions, and they were eating MREs and they were dodging IEDs, And these soldiers do not have sympathy for someone who's saying that the laundry doesn't work on their ship. One of my friends who's a Marine officer told me that he washed his camis in an ammo can for a period of months. They don't have a lot of sympathy for these guys, but the Lincoln is an aircraft carrier that has been on a long deployment. And I think that all of these different pieces can be true. We need a better procurement system for new ships. We are down to one shipbuilder in the world who we can order from and work with. Newport News is the only place where our nuclear aircraft carriers are being commissioned and built. There's such inconsistent planning by our military that naval shipyards can't exist because you can't have a highly skilled person who has a job for 4 years and then doesn't have a job after that. So there's a lot of things that need to be redone. The way that we're buying those things needs to change because there's lobbying that happens, and military officers are basically given jobs as soon as they leave in ways that are corrupt. There's a great book. It has a lot of cursing and objectionable things, but it's a true story called Fat Leonard that you may enjoy if you want to learn more about the problems I see with the Navy and why. But we also just live in a strange age where a group of 5,000 people, the squeakiest wheels, 4 or 5 people whining and crying about how long their deployment is, end up in major news stories and in major newspapers and people demanding changes. But there's one thing in particular that struck me because I have friends who are facing this exact issue right now in the military. And what struck me is this. There are people who don't know how long they're going to be gone. They don't know their deployment. Now, it is true that in World War II, you had people who were sent for the duration, which meant your deployment might be 3 years long. But in the military, in this combat operation, which is less than a formal declaration of war, there's generally been pretty clear and consistent expectations around you're going to be gone this long and then you get back. You're going to be gone this long and then you get back. And what is absolutely crushing people is uncertainty. If you knew you had to go for 10 months, that's not nearly as bad as going for 7 months with no return date that you know is going to be. Well, you might be there for 2 years. The truth is that the ship that everyone's writing about, that someone jumped off of, they survived, they were fished out, that ship is on a 9-month deployment. They're on the way back right now. They're getting, another ship has come to relieve them. And we were told in the Wall Street Journal, CENTCOM saying that this was regularly scheduled already. But that's not what we've heard at the other levels of the military in terms of the sailors themselves did not know you were being relieved at this time. They did not know that their crews would be extended or for how long. And I have other friends in other branches of the military who are experiencing the same thing. The last time they went over in the last 2 years, they were told you're going to be there for 6 months. Now they're being told you're going and we're not going to tell you when you're coming back because we don't know. Now, operational security might mean that happens sometimes. I understand that. There are reasons for it, but it is crushing to people to be asked to endure something for an indefinite length of time. It is much, much easier for your family, for you, if you know when you're coming home. And so that is something I think we need to do better. We need to communicate better. I also want to honor the service of family members of those who serve in our military. They couldn't do what they do without you, without your love and your support. And we know that you are serving as well. So I'm thankful for you, praying for the soldiers and sailors around the world, the airmen, and don't pray for the Marines. They're fine. They're good. Hoorah. No, just kidding. I'm praying for the Marines, of course, as well. Yeah, it hit the news, and there are people cheering against it. Now, we said that we've won the war in Iran. We said it over and over again. Still haven't won. What happened? What in the world happened there? Well, a bunch of things happened. I'm not going to go into it because there's been a very long update already. What I'll say, and I did write an update if you want to read more about my latest on Iran on Facebook. But what I'll say is that our blockade is working. We should have gone in with the Kurds when we started. We didn't. Now Trump's going to wait out the midterms. It is possible if polling changes, which I don't see happening because I think our economy is doing pretty well and the redistricting helped. But if Trump thinks that we're going to lose in a landslide, it's possible we do something in October. I think that's unlikely. I think what we're headed towards is an after the midterm escalation kinetically. We're winning. We're winning. If you listen to the Iran war and you don't understand we're winning, it's time to get better sources of news and information. Well, Clayton, you just believe everything CENTCOM says. You're just a simp for the man. I don't believe everything CENTCOM says, but I do think that our governmental propaganda around certain things is limited by the access to information that we all have. The government's not lying about ships being sunk or not. It's not lying and covering up hundreds of combat deaths we don't know about. Nothing like that is happening. We are winning. Well, how do you define victory? And that's, a challenge. And I said I wouldn't go into it. I'll go into it a little bit. I believe that Donald Trump thought he could negotiate with Iran because he fundamentally misunderstood who's in Iran. Iran is not mostly at the highest levels of leadership right now, the highest echelon. It's not rational actors. Trump wouldn't enjoy debating or trying to manipulate me. And in this sense, and this hopefully only sense, I'm similar to Vahidi and the IRGC. Most people have a lever that you can pick up or push. And for most people, that boils down to sex, power, or money. Some combination of the three. It is a very rare person who can't be bought, who is very content with the sex they have and doesn't want any other, and who isn't tempted by offers of power. Well, I'll give you this role. I'll give you this promotion. I'll give you... Nope, I'm doing what God told me to do. I'm going to keep doing that. The people who run Iran are scary. They're dangerous. They wanted nukes, and I believe if we had not intervened last summer and intervened in March, they would currently have nukes. And that's a horse of an entirely different color than Pakistan having nukes. And the reason is they are part of a 12er Shia death cult that believes that they're going to usher in the Mahdi, the Muslim Messiah, by bringing about the apocalypse. The largest funder of global terror in the last 40 years is Iran. And currently they're losing. Their economy's in shambles. Our blockade is working. They cannot fund Hezbollah. They cannot fund Hamas. They cannot fund the Houthis. They can't rearm them. They don't have their normal routes of rearming. And so terrorist murderers are losing and the good guys are winning. They're not perfectly good. Okay. The good guys are winning. And I'm thankful. I hope you have gratitude. I hope when you look at systems, you will look at the systems and say, how can I help with this problem? What can I insist on? Part of that is political involvement. I'm not telling you how to vote. I am telling you, you should never support a person who wants to murder babies. That is evil and wicked and heinous, and you can't trust them morally if that's how broken they are. And I'm also telling you that many of the problems with our justice system currently are obvious and human caused. Crime is getting better. If you want to have gratitude for anything about crime, it should be that. There are still outrages. There are still broken cases. There are still broken jurisdictions. But crime is going down. Why? We know why. People don't want to talk about it. They don't want to admit it. And criminology as a field, which I don't think is a particularly strong field, partly because I've studied the debate about this and the people don't seem very smart who are arguing about it. The reason is mandatory minimum sentences. That's why crime's going down. Street gangs, street drugs, people who escalated from this level of crime to this level of crime to this level of crime happened over and over again, and someone would shoot someone and get out of jail. In Lonsdale, it was the shooter of Brittany Daniels, a child, a 7-year-old, who he shot and killed. And he got out of jail less than 10 years later. He's in prison now for decades because of mandatory minimums, because he sold drugs as a felon. Mandatory minimum sentences on people who are dangerous keep the people who are dangerous from hurting more people. That is what's happened. It doesn't mean that I don't support nonviolent, yes, we can do better with some aspects of our system. But let me tell you what we should do with dangerous people in our society. Lock them up and don't allow them to hurt someone else. And we already have been, and it already is working, and it'll keep working. If we, the people in the United States of America, tell politicians we know what works, we know what doesn't, and we will hold you responsible if you let the wicked, evil people out on the streets again and again to hurt the innocent. We won't let you kill babies, and we won't let even the women who are currently voting for the woke delusion to get by without us putting up in front of them the path of life, to get rid of prosecutors who let criminally guilty people go free over and over so they can harm others. You can end the cycle. We don't have it here in Knoxville, Tennessee. You don't have to have it in your community. I hope you'll stay engaged. I hope you'll stay grateful. Thanks for watching.